So, hello everyone. I guess everything is working. My camera might be a bit dark today, but maybe I will work something with the light, but okay, it does not really matter that much. So, for today I will be doing some more monsters, like 75 I guess are left at the moment. And today I will be trying a burning skeleton. He was the next one in an order. This was the first one, the 0 1, the first one. And today I will also uncover the number 2, so I really wonder what there will be. Also, if there is something wrong with the audio or something like this, just let me know. So yeah, that's pretty much all. Also, in the meantime, I managed to make a horror captain. So basically it's some sort of a like mummy type of a skeleton, something like this. I kind of imagined him looking like this, and I found this really cool looking references with some mummies or stuff like this, and I kind of felt they really fit to this guy. So I kind of pretty much copied these guys together to have this guy. And for today I have a burning skeleton, and I already got a reference for me. That is an emulator from Hunt Showdown, so I guess this is pretty much a burning skeleton. I don't really want to make it look like this. I kind of want it to be a little bit more like skeletal, but this is the idea that I want to make for today. And also in here there's a reference for the skeleton itself. The previous one was this guy, so yeah, let me hide this one. Let me bring this one up. And we will start with the burning skeleton. So this is really interesting because I rolled 3 skeletons in a row. I didn't think it will happen, but it turns out it did. So I hope the next monster will not be a skeleton, to be honest. We will see. But this is pretty good experience, pretty good like way to train drawing skeletons and whatnot. And since recently the anatomy and character design, everything is a little like my goal at the moment, I feel like drawing some skeletons in a row is a really nice idea to do. And hi, Neuromancer. Actually, a really cool web page, like really back in the days, was called Neuromancer. It was like one of the most beautiful pages I have ever seen. It had tons of great pictures and everything. It was really nicely composed, but unfortunately it was deleted. But it was like a perfect source to look for all the references and just to look for the cool images. I guess Web Archive still has it somehow, like visible, but that's a shame. This web page kinda disappeared, since it really was extremely great. But yeah, and since also I drew like 3 of the skeletons already, like this will be the 3rd one, I guess maybe in this one I will try to go a little bit more crazy with the anatomy. Maybe I will kinda make the bones like look like they melted or something like this. Because what is kind of funny with this burning skeleton, I guess if they could, they would pretty much make them like actually burning. I can imagine why they got called like a burning skeletons. But what is really funny about the bones and skeletons and whatnot, if the bone is fresh when it's living actually, or no, basically when it's fresh, then it is supposedly in a pink colors and everything. So I can safely say this skeleton is the freshest one out of every single one that there is in the Diablo 1 universe. So yeah. Some minor tweaking. But overall, I really hope the next monster won't be a skeleton. But most likely I will randomize some sort of an archer or something like this. So yeah. Archer skeleton will at least make a little bit more sense than the shitty infantry skeleton. like in the memes. This is the reason why you should learn how to use bow, because then you can become a really cool archer skeleton. So yeah. Elvis, Elvis. With this guy, what is also cool, he won't be having a shield and a sword. He will have a double axis. In here, unfortunately, it's not really visible, but recently I have been playing like quite a lot of Diablo 1 on the Beelzebub mod, and they are wielding double axis. So this is quite a cool weapon for the skeletons to have, in my opinion. Let's open the pelvis a bit more. This guy in the ref has really weird pelvis, like the shape is really weird. It's really tilted to the front. Maybe later I will search for some better references for him, but let me see what can be done with it. And actually the immolators are really cool monsters, like just by the design, because one, they are extremely annoying, so if anyone has ever played Hunt Showdown, they know how annoying they can be. And the two, like the graphic design, like basically the visual design for them and the audio design that they made for them, the Crytek did, is extremely cool. So if anyone is not familiar with the Hunt Showdown game, I highly recommend it, because yeah, maybe a top view, but still I don't think the pelvis is that tilted forward. But as I said, if anyone is not familiar with the Hunt Showdown game, I really recommend it. It's extremely cool. Not only from the visuals, but like the gameplay is really cool and the designs are really cool. The audio is perfect. It's a really good game in terms of an audio. So I highly recommend it. Yeah, pelvises actually have really weird geometry. Like it's easy to simplify them to like a box, like a cylinder that is like cut. Something, well, something along these lines. But still the geometry of the pelvis, especially like this area, these blades of a pelvis, this is a really weird thing to have. Whoops. Like a small little pelvis. Also drawing a flame, because I think I want to draw some flames on this guy. This will be quite interesting, because I have no idea how I will approach actually drawing flames with like this inking type of a way that I decided to make all of these monsters. So this might be actually quite a challenge for today, to see how to implement it, how to pretty much figure it out. Let's give him the sexy pose. And also, if anyone used to play Diablo 1 and is not familiar with the Beelzebub mod, I highly recommend it also, because it looks really cool. Hello, Rockcrafter 2K. Yeah, no problem. There is this multi-stream thing, so I see pretty much everything. If you can just paste a link, I will see if the link is like working in here. And yeah, most likely just paste the link in the Twitch. I think I should be able to see it. So then I will gladly look at your work. Maybe I will drop some like things for you. So no problem with it. Let's give him this cool pose. And this diamond forearms. Skeleton holding axe. I have no idea what it is with my brain that I cannot remember. How this shit rotate? Okay, like this. Okay, the link is working. So let me open it. Oh, not bad. Let me just minimize everything. Yeah, so I wanted to draw skeletons and I have the opposite of skeletons. So generally it looks really okay, especially the line art and this first pass are really cool. The colors not so much. I'm not a huge fan of the color scheme and everything. But the first thing that I think you should do is to actually try to separate like your shadows and your lights, because at the moment you have like a really cool line art, kinda like the ambient occlusion pass, something like this, but what I am missing is the actual shadow pass. So basically try to imagine, like, long story short, what is the shape of a shadow. So for example, in here we will like simply map it, just like I will try to make like a crease for it, where I kind of expect the, let's say, the core shadow to be. So like this in here. So basically the whole character on this right side will actually be in the shadow. So let me simply, let's go like this. Usually if you are doing this type of a thing, especially if it's your first one, as you said, it's first attempt, no reference, is to actually use a reference. There is no better way to actually understand how the light behaves if you will use actual references, because without references it's just pretty much guessing, especially on the beginning, because as you said, if you are like a beginner, there's no way you will know how the things pretty much behave. So it might be a good idea to include some references, but let me just, okay. So basically what it does, it kind of separates the light area from the shadow area. Maybe also in here something should be done. And now we can also decide what color of the shadow we want it to be. So let's say she's standing in like a broad daylight, so maybe a bluish hue will be fine for it, and then simply go with the multiply. Now we can play a bit with the sliders to make it a bit like lighter and whatnot, maybe to bring down the saturation a bit, but this is like the basic idea of what I think you should be trying to do. And the really easy way with the shadows, like to approach the shadows that are going like naturally from like that are not a cast shadow. Wait, I will soon answer all the questions. The shadows that are like going, the geometry is like rounding up, and the something is not like lighting up the shadow will give you like a soft shadow, and when something is casting the shadow, then the shadow will actually be hard. Like this is a really simple way to approach it, to approach shading, but it kind of works this way. So it might make it a bit easier to understand. So hard shadows only for the cast shadows. And yeah, most likely, yeah. Kind of think about it like with the Noir comics, like the black and white type of thingies, because if you think with the shadows like with a graphical shapes, then it will be way easier for you to say what is in the light, what is in the shadow. As you can see, I done pretty much nothing at all in terms of like the actual painting or drawing. I simply just colored a layer, but you can immediately see how much more volume there is, and it's like the first pass At the moment, the thing that I would focus most on is actually like maybe even selecting a second type of a color, like, whoa, like, shit, like this orange type of a hue or something like this, and simply try to maybe add some rim light to it, or maybe like a shot, like type of a color that will kinda bring out the silhouette from the back, but maybe it should be done on the other layer. But basically try to imagine how this thing will look like in two tones, because now if we were to like combine all of this and simply like threshold it, let me also join it with this one. Now you can see like you get way more information about like the shadows. So maybe in your case, maybe around this stage something starts to happen with the shadows actually, but for this one, like the volumes are way more readable even at this stage. Like there is way more happening in the shadows. So I think something like this would pretty much would do the would do the thing. Yeah, this is pretty much the way to approach it. And of course, after you will like try to do it, because in here I only have like this really solid color of blue, like let's say this type of a blue. If I were to approach a place that is a bit denser with the geometry, let's say, so for example, like where the arm is getting closer to the body, then I will take a little bit more saturated color, a little bit darker color, and now I can kind of start rendering everything. So as you can see, now the places where I kind of expect it to be a bit darker, now I can easily like pretty much make it darker. So it will simply look just way better. And the darker you will go, the shorter story is the shadow will get way more saturated. It will simply be darker and more saturated. That's pretty much all. And later also you should take in account that there is a reflected shadow. So for example, if you have this like greenish type of a hue, maybe some light is actually reflecting from it. So let's say something like this, and maybe then try to simply paint a bit like on the areas where this color could touch the geometry. So now as you can see, you get this like light blue shadow and this yellowish reflection, like greenish yellowish reflection type of a thing, or maybe from the hair, because the hair are pretty much golden, so then maybe a bit of a yellow light will like reflect from them. And this will kind of create this really nice feeling of small like hue changes. So for example, in here the green will get way like warmer, because if you like combine a green with like a really cool, a really warm yellow light, it will simply get a bit warmer. So this is pretty much the general idea on how I will approach this type of thingies. But also if you separate, like as I said, the light and the shadow really clearly, it is way easier to paint something like this, because you will have a better idea what you actually need to like render or what you don't really need to render. Because in here you pretty much need to render almost everything, and in here it might be hard to decide. And for example, if we were to like change the light setup, so for example increase the contrast a bit, as you can see everything really starts to pop. Everything seems really like that has a really solid volume. But overall this is a really good start, so I will just continue doing this type of things. Yeah, no problem. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask. It will be like the image will be saved on the stream, so feel free to like replay it as many times as you wish. But if this is like a first try, then it's a really good first try. Yeah, and now let's go back to this little bit more bony type of a guy with a little bit less flesh on him. I hope he won't get jealous. Actually, let me hide this entire arm in here. And this one will be in the... Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I mean, like, take your time. The best actually way to improve is at the beginning, is to just take your time with it. Like, it's way better to like make one art that really is hard for you instead of like making tens of them that are not really that problematic, or just to make 10 just for the sake of making them. Also, for this type of a thing, is for this topic, you should really search for a guy that is called Artgerm. And the second Germ, and the second guy, I don't remember the name of the second guy, but maybe soon I will like think about it. So it was really similar to Artgerm, but it was a bit different. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of wanted him to make him like scream that he's burning or something like this. I can kind of see it like happen, but yeah, I guess he got another reason to scream. I'm not entirely sure on this like power pose. Yeah. Also, there was the second guy. Later, I will try to search for him. He mostly paints like females with a really characteristic proportions and everything, but the way he renders, like the quality of his render is actually out of this world. Like, he really knows what he is doing with all the shapes and volumes and everything. So it's also a really cool reference for pretty much any artist to pick up from, because like as I said, the quality of everything that he does is extremely good. And it was really similar to Artgerm, but I don't remember. It's like, it's I had this problem in the past that I wanted to show him to someone, but I just simply couldn't remember the name since it was really similar to this one. Let's give this guy some like really brute looking access. Again, since this is like the most basic mob, I don't want him to have anything that is too complex, that is like too powerful looking. Kinda want him to have like this shitty type of an equipment that basically will be possible for them to get. Because one of the things that I really don't like in many games and projects, that the shittest mobs have the armors that look like the top level 99 type of armor type of a thingy. I'm trying to remember the name, but I can't really think about it, like how it was called. It was art something also. Just let me search for him for a while, because I guess I have it on, I have him on Facebook. Oh, it was Artnip, okay. I knew this one was really similar. And these two guys, like, in my opinion, for the render and for the painting females and anything that is related to this type of a topic, these two guys are actually the best out there at the moment. This is like heavily sexualized and everything, but like from the technical aspect, technical point of view, his artworks are like crazy good. I won't show them in here because I don't think I'm even can. But yeah, make sure to check this guy up. I think this is a guy. I'm not sure if he is a guy or not, to be honest. And for this skeleton also I would like to have some like things hanging from him, like the actual things that are burning. I really like the idea of this like scorched skin covering everything, but I'm kind of hesitant to just steal the idea, but I really like this one. It actually is the perfect answer for a burning skeleton, so... But I want to be this like blatant. I guess this is the word, blatant. Like, don't to be this obvious with like using actually the same idea, but and also what I really liked from the previous skeleton was this like opened mouth and the like eye sockets that looked kind of like dry, that were not like fully open, that they still had some tissue in it. So I guess this is a thing that I will try to keep within the skeletons because it makes them look a bit more creepy, a little bit more cool, I think, in a sense. And especially since this is like the burning skeleton, maybe giving him some horns and whatnot, like demonic type of protrusions out of him will kind of benefit him. Maybe not necessarily this is a human skeleton, maybe some sort of a devil one. So I guess maybe adding like a small horn will be like a nice thing for him to have. Especially since they can be found a little bit deeper in the catacombs, so maybe actually giving them a little bit more of this like demonic presence is a good idea. Since maybe like the closer you are to like the lowest levels of hell, maybe the more like deformed you get because of all these forces that are happening in there. Could be some sort of a lead for some cool designs. I'm not necessarily think this axe look cool. I think maybe like even showing it extremely from the front. Yeah, it looks dumb either. Maybe like this, a little bit more from the side. It also does not make a lot of sense. Kinda looks like he would like to party. Yeah, I want to, like, firstly I want to draw a skeleton and then I want to kind of wonder how to apply this, like, fiery looking effect to him. Because as I said previously, I don't really want to go really extremely off from the original, but I also don't want it to just be like a burning skeleton or just a pink skeleton, because like, well, it will look a bit weird, I think. But I don't really like the placement for the second axe. Like the angle of it is really weird. Oh, I guess let's keep it this way. What I was kind of thinking was about like to make him look a bit more like he's made of some sort of a black material that is like burning, really hot, like kind of like a hot steel burning. And also to maybe give him a little bit of this like burnt wood type of a texture on him, because if I were to burnt wood, even take a reference, I was thinking about something like this, let's say, for him to be. There's actually a really cool trick on how you can make this type of a thingies in the Photoshop really quickly. When burning skeleton. Yeah, but the thing that I definitely want to avoid is doing something like this, because, yeah, I mean, it looks cool as a graphic, but not necessarily as a monster. I can imagine him being really weird, but also the thing, yeah, I think something like this will be a bit closer for the thing that I really want to make. But in this case, it's really hard to see anything because it's pretty much black on black. So this is not really that nice. But now, as I can see, there are a lot of cool references around the web. Yep, I don't think I should be looking at any references, because I will then simply steal the idea, and I don't want to steal the idea. Also not now entirely sure on, well, on this face. I don't like the angle for it. So let me just remove it, place it in here. Maybe I will keep him on the side. I kind of feel like he should be. Let me duplicate the whole thing. Kind of feel like he should be like tilting to the front. Kind of make like this type of a scream. Now the whole pose gets really weird looking. But I could like place this leg a bit further, and I could make this one a bit shorter. And this whole thing then will get slightly changed geometry. I definitely prefer this pose over that one. It does not look like he is a superhero posing and trying to like intimidate someone. It kinda looks like he is just a skeleton like walking. And instead of like screaming, I kinda want him to have like the mouth like barely open. And maybe from this like cool, a bit more like of a side view. So I could show a bit more of a, for example, a skull burning. So in here there will be a flame or something like this. But definitely this pose feels a little bit more natural for this one. Yep, I prefer this one much more. Not the school still, but it's getting a bit closer to what I want. Also, if anyone decides to draw this type of a thing, feel free to drop your things in here. I will gladly see how you will approach this type of thingies. It will be a really cool thing to see how differently some people will tackle the idea, like how wild it can go. But yeah. Also with this project, the thing that is kinda like most visible for me is the amounts of hours skipped of sketching, because I never was like really sketching a lot. I never really liked to sketch without a purpose, and now it's kinda like catching up to me. And now I kinda see sometimes I do have some problems with sketching, but the more of these guys I do, the better and the easier it all kinda feels. So a lesson to be learned. Never skip doing things that you think are hard. Oh yeah, now it looks way better. Reposition the skull. They kinda want to keep the horns. It gives it a little bit more like this demonic presence. This arm will be higher entirely in here, and this guy will be a bit longer. Also, I tried to include a chat box on the screen, but I can see it is not really appearing, so I don't know why, but how to set up everything for streaming is still a bit a mystery for me. But yeah. Also, what I can imagine this skeleton doing is kind of like walking and dropping like this molten thing is like behind him, like leaving the trails of fire. I think it will look, possibly could look really dope. Have like a skeleton that actually is like leaving a flaming trail behind him. Since I can imagine like all the fire coming from like supernatural places, like actually that they are like fueled by the power of hell or whatever like this, then this flame is continuously like not burning something but continuously like magically reappearing. So I think it will be a really cool thing to have like this molten things like dropping from him constantly. Yep. Looks kinda okay. Let me detail him a bit more. And also what is really cool with actually continuing to do like this whole project is how faster each monster kinda comes to be, like how easier it is to make them. Like since I only did like 17 of them at this point, or maybe a bit more, it's still kinda great to see some results on the quality for them. for the quality to improve a bit. So I really wonder, because when I finished the whole thing, I wanted to like redraw only the first one that I ever did. It was a, a poison spitter, I guess, or something like this, a quadrupedal one. I kind of wonder how differently I will approach it. And teeth should be a bit more like this. Also having this a little bit more demonic looking teeth is a good opportunity to play a bit more with the design of this guy. If we can talk about the design with just one sketch. But yeah. Also, if anyone, as I said, has any questions, feel free to ask them. If anyone has any painting that would like to share and to get some opinions on, or maybe a paint over or something like this, maybe also try to share it. Turns out the links are working in the stream, so I don't think it should be a problem to include them in here. So feel free to do so. What I kind of want to also add to this guy is like the, not the entire skin like the emulator has, but kind of like the scorched version of it. So he will have only like the strands of a tissue around him. So instead, for example, in here, for the entire muscle to be like in here attached, to only have like a really thin version for it, because it will allow me to cast a really cool looking small local shadows. So I think this is a really good way to introduce a bit more detail to the whole thing. And it looks a bit more neat. Actually, I think like the task to redesign a skeleton, kind of to give to someone a topic of a skeleton and to actually like design a skeleton, is a really nice way to see how someone is capable of like designing stuff, because it's so like, it's the design that was done like so many times. It's really hard to like think about something really innovative with these guys. So it's a really nice way, I think, in my opinion, to see the capabilities of someone as a designer or a concept artist. It would even be cool as like an entry exam to some sort of a concept art schools or whatever. Like you get a task where you have to design like this, the most basic mob ever to imagine. And you will, for example, have to design a skeleton or a zombie or something like this. I can imagine a zombie being a bit more interesting because you can play a bit more with the tissue and whatnot. But to actually come up with something cool for the skeletons, I think it's not that really easy. I'm not saying this is something extremely original, because I have seen this type of a guys over and over again. I would say the emulator actually is a really great answer for it, because this is an original design and also a really good looking one. So this is a one way to approach it. Also, I remember back in the days when I was just like starting how to draw everything, like all these anatomical type of a thingies in here happening and whatnot, when I tried to be so extremely perfect with everything that is happening in here, with all this, like how the bones join and everything. It was so limiting in terms of the speed that I used to learn all of this stuff, because I was like so much caring about the shit that's pretty much not really important at all, because nobody pretty much sees this area. In even like a huge drawing, it's really hard to see this type of a place. I sometimes wonder how different my style would look like, or how different I would approach art if like I had the knowledge that I have right now, like 10 years ago. I wonder what direction I would take with everything. Or for example, if this is also like a question I guess every teacher asked themselves at some point, like if I were to teach myself, like being a different person completely and having a teacher like me, would I like myself? This is actually a question that is really interesting. Like, not even like would I be able to like myself, if I would like myself as a person, but if I would actually say that I am a good teacher or something like this. Or to see all the mistakes in the approach and whatnot from like the third person perspective. It will also be a really interesting thing to see. But I guess this is also the question that pretty much every single artist ask themselves. So yeah. The thing that is already kind of problematic is because I kind of know that the light will be like the fire will give me some sort of a light source, and I kind of wonder how many different like shadows and everything I will need to change later in the game while actually like trying to color him and whatnot, because of this like light reappearing everywhere. And the pectoral muscles, single strands. Also, one of the things that I noticed is actually sketching skeletons, like drawing skeletons and everything, is a really good exercise for training your like ability to focus and to continue working on something that is kind of boring in a sense, because after like drawing 3 or 5 skeletons, I can imagine this topic being a bit tedious, because you have like all these bones like pretty much repeating all the time. And I think it's a really good exercise also to try to improve on the focus part of doing art, because it's not something that is really crazy interesting. Also, especially since like vast majority of the volume that there is with this guy to draw actually is a really thin things to draw, so it's not necessarily like the most interesting type of a thing is to draw. It's really hard to do like a really crazy shading or something like this, because like there's pretty much not much space for it, because it's really hard to include a lot of cool shading thingies on a really thin elements. But yeah. But this guy is definitely a bit more interesting than the previous skeleton. A bit more cool stuff happening on him. Also, if the next monster will be a skeleton, even if it will be an archer, I will kind of skip it in the moment because I don't want to draw another skeleton. But I kind of feel like the next one will be a skeleton archer. And I would say it will be the corpse one. This yellowish type of a skeleton, so... I think it will be hard on me. Yeah, I mean, like, actually, what is really cool with the skeletons is the fact that they are made entirely out of a really simple geometry, because like pretty much every single bone and everything that is happening in here is either a cylinder or some sort of a sphere or something like this, or just like a weirdly distorted box, for example. And this is really cool as an exercise, but the problem with the skeletons is the fact that the people tend to treat them in the similar manner as with the drawing the humans or a human figure, is that they immediately think that they are unable to draw a skeleton because it is hard thing to do. But when like in the reality is just like this type of a shape over and over and over again, just composed in a way that it looks like a skeleton. And because of this reason, I don't necessarily think a skeleton is a great way to exercise drawing, especially for the beginners, because of this like approach of like, I cannot do this because it is human, because it is hard. I think drawing like bones, like skulls of animals and whatnot, like trying to draw individual bones is way better because you don't necessarily focus on the entire skeleton. But I guess at some point, if you are a little bit more advanced or if you feel comfortable with drawing everything, then like it's completely okay. I guess 3 or 4 years, something like this, for the feel like kind of comfortable about talking about these thingies. I mean, to some degree, it's still not really comfortable for me because like talking about money is kind of a hard topic for like pretty much anyone to do. And with artists, it's really prominent because vast majority of artists, as far as I know, are not really that good with money and everything, because like most likely we love what we do and it's really hard to put like a price tag on it because in most cases most artists care on their stuff and don't really like view this type of a thing as a product. So this is for starters, but at this point I don't really have problems talking how much something will cost or whatnot, and to like try to get a better deal for each painting and everything. But I don't think I will ever get used to it, because sometimes you will meet a client that is really like pretty much willing to pay you whatever that you will say, because he simply wants his shit to his done, or she, or the company, or whatever to call them. And sometimes you will like meet the artist or like meet a client that has like this brilliant idea and they like really think the project will change the life or the way the industry works and everything. And then after like exchanging 3 or 5 long emails with them, it turns out the budget is non-existing at the moment. And yeah, it's kind of hard to say. Oh, when I got confident to think, to be honest, this is even harder question. Like, this is a really hard question, because I don't necessarily believe in me being ready for anything. Like, of course, if someone wants me to make some sort of an illustration, I have a way higher probability of succeeding with it than I had, like, for example, 5 years ago, because I simply like experimented way more and I simply have way more experience with it. But I won't say I feel like always 100% confident with all the projects and everything that I'm taking. I prefer to think about this type of a thing is like, I'm not ready and I will never be more ready. So I will just take a commission or something like this and I will teach myself how to do it while actually doing it. So it's kind of like building confidence while actually working on the project. But it's more like I never thought about myself like I am great at this, I can do it professionally. More I was thinking like I really like doing it, I would like to do it professionally. So, and after some time like of thinking like this and doing just my stuff and doing minding my business on business, like people started asking me to do stuff for them. So it was kind of not my decision to start working professionally, because to this point I have never actually like applied for any type of a job. Like only recently I sent some CVs and everything, because I was kind of thinking about like moving abroad and just working in some sort of a studio for like a year or something like this, just for like pretty much shits and giggles and everything, because I just wanted to try something new. And this was like the only like one time when I actually applied for some sort of a job. The rest was like just clients finding me and wanting me to do something. So I won't say I was ever confident enough to start thinking about I can do this professionally. To be honest, the more I do and the more I discover, I guess this will be a better answer to this question. And the more complex gigs that I have and commissions and everything, the more I kind of feel that I'm extremely not ready for this industry, because recently when I have been working on some bigger projects and I have seen what people were actually doing there and what they were capable of, I felt like the biggest noob out there. I feel like the complete total beginner and a noob. But I kind of like this feeling, because I like to be like the worst one in the room. So then I have the best opportunity to actually learn something. I guess I will never be ready. It's a really hard question, to be honest. I never thought about it this way, so I might be like mumbling or contradicting myself. To be honest, I have no idea, because since I'm still like living with my parents, like with my mother, and only like in the end of this year I'm moving out, because like the houses in Poland are extremely expensive at the moment. And being an artist is pretty much a huge no-no for any type of a bank to give you like a credit score or something like this, or however to tell it, because even if you will earn like 10,000 euro per month for like a whole year and you still have a company that says that you're a professional artist, most banks will tell you no, like no loan for you. So because this is like this weird type of a job where pretty much at some point you can just stop getting commissions and everything and whatnot. But yeah, I also really like this question. But when I was like when I started learning art, I was still in like high school and everything, so there was like no requirement for me to pay all the like I had pretty much had no things to pay for. And I was not really an expensive type of a guy. Like I don't really live an expensive life, I would say. But the more I started to grow up, the more like going out with the friends, like going out with my girlfriend and whatnot started happening, and it kind of increased the costs and everything, but not in a rate when it pretty much made my expenses like 10 times bigger. It kind of gradually increased pretty much alongside with the income that I was making just for myself, to the point where I can pretty much say that I am kind of able to like sustain, to make a living from it. But to make a living that I would like to make, I'm still kind of far ahead. Like, this is still a journey, but it's getting better, I would say. So, like, I was working as a freelance artist for quite some time, and also I forgot on the biggest part. I was in the, like, after starting like my studying and everything, I was also teaching at Domin. I'm still do the art school. So it was like for quite some time like my main source of income, we could say, because it was like a weekend job but a nicely paid job. So it kind of got me covered for quite some time. But yeah, I guess it was a really natural transition for me to like to go from I have zero money to I don't really need to ask anyone for money. But yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing to say. Like, I can like purely say what type of an expenses and everything I have when I like fully move out and whatnot. Because like for the past 6 years, pretty much I was extremely busy with finishing like my studies to get a degree and everything. So it like occupied the vast majority of my time that I had, and only like from like for the past year I really had the time to develop in a sense professionally. So I could say I'm a fully available freelancer only for a year at this point. But since I also knew Photoshop and everything quite well, I had not that many problems while actually studying, because the things that my colleagues were doing in like 10 hours or something like this, I could do in like an hour on or even less, because I simply knew what type of a software I'm using. And it was actually a great help, and it kind of allowed me to like take some commissions and everything. But yeah. But I will see in the future how it will kind of go, because it's really hard to predict. Like, sometimes like I got months when I was like simply not having any commissions and everything, like at all, like everything was quiet. And usually also these were the months when I did not really need it that much work, because I had stuff to take care of. And now usually it is a bit like when I think I need a commission, all of a sudden I got like 5 different projects to work on, and I need to choose what I want to work on. So I guess this is a really nice and comfortable position for me to be in, because because it's kind of obvious. But yeah. And for the saying that if you are the smartest person in the room, then you are in the wrong room, is something that I extremely agree with. It's kind of hard to say. Actually, hello, Adrian. Actually, for like one painting, I guess it was around $850, I guess, something like this. Minus the PayPal fees and everything and all the taxes and whatnot, it was around 700 something, like maybe like this. It's the problem with the pricing is the fact that I live in Poland, and we kind of have a different understanding of the market abroad, because the prices are really different. Like, the cost of living is way different than abroad. And I guess I could charge way more, but I simply don't know it yet. And when sometimes I heard what some people are like earning, like in terms of like seeing their artworks, not saying they were like bad and useless and everything, and just seeing that their skill cap level was like visibly lower than mine, and seeing that they actually charge 3 times more than I do, I was like, okay, I guess I need to charge more a bit. But for quite some years, at this point, I have some clients that I continue to work with, so I will increase some the prices in like a short period of time, because like the cost of living will simply increase, because like in Poland everything is getting like now crazy more expensive. But also I wouldn't feel really fair telling them that the same thing that I used to do for like this price will cost like now 3 times much more or something like this. But yeah, actually one of the best commissions that I had, that also was one of the funnest commission that I was doing, like really back in the days. No, not back in the days, in the last year, was a guy who wanted me to paint 2 of his original characters to have sex together, and I never did this type of a thingy. So all of a sudden I became the NSFW artist just by pure accident. But it was extremely fun commission. So I would say this was the commission that also went the smoothest in my entire life, because even before I managed to send him like all the details for the payment and everything, the buyer sent me all the money and everything on my PayPal account and whatnot, and I was like, okay. I will need. Yeah, so in here for like 1,500 euros, you will live like a king basically, without any problems whatsoever. So yeah, also the problem that I really think about. Okay, maybe it's not a problem that much, because like the usage is a bit different. But if you're like a graphic designer, so let's say you design logos and everything, like do all this branding and whatnot, and this type of stuff. And for example, a really huge company will contact you and they want you to design a new logo, new brand or whatever. To be honest, it's not necessarily that much more work than, for example, doing like an extremely complex painting. Sometimes I would even say it's way easier in a sense. Of course, the market is way more like developed for graphic designers, I would say, kinda, instead for like a digital painters, artists and whatnot. And then you can like really like say you want a crazy amount of money, because like this shit is expensive. But for example, and this is pretty much the face of the company and everything. Yeah, to be honest, yeah, and but to finish my thought, is if you are even making a really complex design and everything, it's really hard to put a price on it in a sense, because usually like for example a card art is a really small part of the entire project. This is like one card next to like 200 different cards that need to be included, and it really takes a lot of things, like a lot of small things to happen together, for example for a board game, to make a board game. And this is kind of where the value of all the illustrations and everything is really like dropping, because it is possible for you to make, for example, a one good logo that will be used for like 10 years or something like this. But you will also need to make like, and for example it will pay for like 4 months of your living. But to earn the same amount of money with digital art, with like drawing and painting and everything, you will need to produce like, let's say 20 artworks or something like this. And in total it will take you way longer, because simply the value on this type of stuff is way lower, I would say. But yeah. And also the differences with the clients. For example, like even let's say a poor client from abroad usually is way better to work with than, let's say, a medium-sized client from Poland, because in here, like, a typical price tag on an illustration is sitting around, let's say, maybe 2000 zloty for a cover, like, maybe. I know, like, some of my friends had problems to, like, get this amount of money for a cover or something like this, while if you will translate it, it's like 500 euros or something like this. And as far as I know, getting a cover gig, for example, in Germany for 500 euros is like a no-brainer, easy thing to do. Like, I would think it's even considered to be a cheap price on a cover artwork. So it's really hard to say. Like, this is kind of also the reason why I don't really like putting a price tag or anything that I do. I usually try to value per project. Like, I tend to put a price tag on a project through the value and the project itself, instead of like having a flat rate for the illustration. So let's say this type of a sketch for like one project would cost $50 or something like this, and for other project it will cost like $500, because like the value for the bigger project is just better. And also, this is a topic that really nicely was covered by Chris Du, and the CEO of the Future, where he said, like, okay, you wouldn't like charge Nike like let's say $1,000 for a logo, but maybe you would charge a small like local shop $1,000 for a logo. So this is kind of the thinking that I really prefer much more, because really often, even when I just read some like topics and comments and everything, really often I feel a lot of digital artists, painters, and like drawers, let's name them with the meme name, are really underpaid. And as far as I know, a lot of different companies like a bit take advantage of it, because like they simply can, because like in the end you get paid for drawing monsters and everything. So like, for example, if I have to design a monster, like, I am enjoying a lot of doing this type of a thing. I simply like doing this type of a thing. So why should I like charge a crazy amount of money for it if I'm pretty much having a good time while working on it? Yeah, that's right. That's pretty much true. But there's also, like, to be honest, I can imagine sometimes the fact that I have written that I'm from Poland being a case why I got some commissions, because it's simply like it's way cheaper to hire someone from Poland. So, but like, I'm not pretty much going to change it that or pretend that I'm not from Poland. Hello, Mikołaj. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm at the point where I kinda can say like the people will just throw offers at me and everything, and I will safely, like, I don't need to search for any type of a work. I would say I may be getting closer to the point where I have an established like relation with a lot of cool places to work with. That will kinda allow me to have like a constant flow of commissions and everything. So yeah. Yeah, but that's true. Why should you hire someone from Germany if someone from Poland can do it cheaper, most likely? But yeah. And also, I guess, like, one of the problems with the artists and them getting paid and everything, that is extremely easy to see, is the artists usually know shit about like law and everything and all this like like legal type of a thingies, where you actually need to take a legal action for someone, or about like signing some documents and whatnot that pretty much screw them over. So this is also one of the reasons why I think a lot of clients try to take an advantage over an artist, because like as I said, vast majority of artists has no idea how this type of a thing is work. I was lucky enough like actually have like to my mother to work in a similar place, and basically since I started she was like telling me, oh, you need to take care of all this like legal stuff and everything and whatnot, and it was and it still is so extremely annoying, but I know she's right with like pretty much everything that she says about it. So now I don't pretty much have like vast majority of the problems that most likely I will encounter if I would have not know how to pretty much talk with the clients like from this legal type of a side. But yeah, but as far as I know, vast majority of an artist, even like the dump articles on the web, says this type of a thing is that most artists are really like fragile and really like delicate persons, delicate personalities and everything, and usually being an artist do not go well in the pair with being a businessman. There is like a small movement I can see happening like for the several past years, where actually artists like increase their value, like they can see the value that they have with the products that they are making, but it's still a long way to go for this industry to really develop into something really great. But yeah. And also one of the problems that I can imagine a lot of people are having, especially artists also, is when a really interesting client, let's say, writes to you and they want you to work on their project and it sounds really cool and everything and you should start working like right now. A lot of the times artists will feel kind of obliged to work with them as fast as they can without signing any type of a documents and everything, and usually it ends up with the client not paying because there's like no legal reason for them to pay, and it's a really easy to dodge an artist if they do this type of a thingies. And since like vast majority of, as I said, artists do not have a good understanding of all these legal laws and everything and whatnot, usually even the client may end up using their artwork illegally, but the artist won't pretty much do shit about it. So this is, I would say, one of the easier occupations to take advantage of, like based on the things that I was reading and everything. But now it's changing, so it is kind of okay. Even like the first commission that I ever got, that I did not got because fortunately I ended up not taking it. The legal document was constructed in a way that it will allow this company to resell everything that I do to a different company without paying me like anything for it. And even though the payment was written in the document, and it was a quite nice payment for someone who is just starting with all the art type of things and everything, there was no information about the time when they need to pay me. So they pretty much could say, okay, we will pay you next week and everything. But since the legal document was not like saying a solid date for the payment, like when the payment is due, they could like avoid just paying me forever. And even to this day, I would not be able to do anything for it because I signed a document without like a payment date on it. So yeah, usually now, if this is like a new client, shit, oh, the Photoshop crashed. Wait, next monster. if this is a new client, then a legal document and everything is on their side to provide and whatnot. Usually I also charge them the additional fee for my lawyer to check the document if there is a need for it, because like usually I have a pretty good, I would say, understanding of what I am reading. Sometimes something is not clear, I simply ask my mother because she is a bit better with this type of a thingies than me, or she will ask some of her friends and whatnot. But if the document is really weird, then it will just go to the lawyer, and then I usually demand half of the payment up front with everything. And if I already has an established like relation with the client, then they tell me what to do, tell me when to do it and everything, and I simply do it. And if they can't pay me, then it's all fine. Usually, luckily, I was not like experiencing many problems with payments in my life. I heard some crazy stories and everything, but pretty much now without a legal document, I do not start doing any type of a work. But as I said, this type of a thing are more a problem with like a smaller clients in a sense, because they also think it's so easy and that you don't need anything legal. And actually, one of the things that was kind of surprising for me, one of my latest project that I started working on recently, that is under NDA, so I cannot talk about the details, what it is and whatnot. But they have a document for everything, like for every single thing that I was doing, there was a new document for it. So a new paper to sign and whatnot and everything. And this actually was kind of surprising because I have never seen this amount of the paperwork being done before. But yeah, it was on the other hand a really nice change. So it was a cool thing to also experience, where they wanted to pretty much have every single thing written down to the smallest details. But yeah, but if someone tells me like no legal document and whatnot and everything, then okay, I will simply like send them an invoice through my company and everything, and if they pay, okay, I can start working. If they don't pay, I don't start working. But yeah, and also like signing a document is even in the better interest of the customer, because for example, if I have like an illustration that they paid me for, I shouldn't, but I still legally can like license it to someone else, so I can like license it to 10 different projects and everything, and like sell in a sense one artwork 10 times. But yeah, like they did not want it to sign anything, so I can do with this illustration still pretty much whatever that I want to. And I even think a lot of different artists should start actually licensing their art instead of like selling all the copyrights and everything to it, because like if you sell copyrights, it's pretty much not yours anymore. But if you're like, for example, drawing a skeleton right now, even though it's based on this sprite, but skeleton as itself is not really something that original, I would say, I could like license this current drawing for like 5 different like projects. Of course, the price will be cheaper because they will need to be aware of the fact that this is a new project. But yeah. Yeah, actually, for the passive income, I was thinking about it for quite some time, but the illustrations that I do are not really that, like, let's say, displayed ready, I would kind of call it, because I don't really have this like artsy type of a style, nor have I like really crazy compositions and whatnot. For example, as Nitsponim has, for example. So I don't think it will really get traction. I was experimenting a bit with selling some shares and everything, but I was like, I'm not really enjoying it, like too much of a hassle. So I would kind of say what I'm kind of trying to do right now, even with the streams and everything, is to kind of build at first the community on the YouTube and everything, just to basically have a community that is based around drawing and learning and pretty much being a better artist and everything. And later maybe sell some tutorials and everything. So I was mostly thinking about the tutorials. And as I said, since my art is not really like something that even I would put on the wall, I don't really feel I should sell it. Maybe at some point it will be like this, but it is not my goal at the time. It's not my area of focus. But yeah, I was thinking about this type of stuff. And most like I think I set up like one print on ArtStation shop with like the giant that I have done underground, but as I thought and as I predicted, it got like zero traction, like none. And actually for the passive income, as far as I know, even if you are like a really huge channel on YouTube, it's still like a small like percentile buys anything from the web. This is also why I kinda prefer making tutorials and everything, and soon I will actually be putting some tutorials up on Gumroad and everything, because I have some things like prepared and whatnot, but yeah. Mostly it will be like the longer versions of the tutorials that I already have on the YouTube, because I don't think like it's something really that special, to be honest, like to make a 20 minutes YouTube video where you can see the progress of a painting. But if someone is like really into it or just wants to have like a longer version, I guess I will be uploading like an 8-hour version of a painting with some like briefs, like a homework type of a thing is for the buyer to do, to have like a better type of a product in the end, like to actually have something to base it off. No, the giant in the like tomb in the underground setting with like the slide on top on it. I meant this one. The mechas were actually a commission for a board game that was cancelled. That's great. That's great to know. Like currently what I am planning to do is, for example, just let me open the files, is to let me see it, is to, for example, put something like this. Like for example, I have the whole recording for this guy, it's already on YouTube, but it's like the sped up version. If someone wants to just see how it came like in a real time, I will simply like include it, like render 8 hours video, include it in the tutorial, create some sort of a brief for a buyer to follow so they can do their own illustration with like the things that I want them to include in there. And also as an addition, I want to finally, I'm talking about it for like a month now, start a Discord channel where anyone who bought a tutorial and did their version of the painting that I like described in the brief, they can like upload it and ask for critiques and everything, so it won't be that random in a sense. So instead of like maybe later getting like 100 paintings to critique on, I will simply be able to focus on the paintings that people actually did based on the Gumroad. So it will be a bit easier for me to manage everything, because I can see even the channel getting a little bit more traction each day, so I can imagine maybe a bit more people will be interested in participating in stuff like this. And for the prices now, I don't want to go extremely crazy, but I kind of wanted to price it like accordingly, even for the time of rendering, because to actually render an 8-hour video, it's way harder than I thought. It requires a serious computer time for it to render everything properly. because recently I tried to render one video that was 9 hours long, and it was like a problem over a problem on top of a problem. Yeah, like I spent the whole day and ended up with a file that was corrupted and everything, because I have no idea why media encoder was like crashing all the time. It's like crash after a crash. But if I were to start selling them, I was thinking around something like $10 or stuff like this, because there's still a fee for the Gumroad and everything and the Artstation marketplace and whatnot. So I guess, and also I still have to pay like a tax from everything. So like the $10 will in the end turn into like 5 maybe bucks top per sale. So to actually make a profit on it, I would really have to sell thousands of them. But I would say like everything is in the making. Like even now I am kind of working on one tutorial, but it will be sold on Yihu. It's like a Chinese site with the tutorials and whatnot. So, but they will actually put a price tag on it. I have no idea how they will price it, but it will. Like I still need to like spend like 2 or 3 weeks on it, so the actual painting will be finished. And if I will ever to make a tutorial that is like $50 or something like this, I will make sure it will be worth way more than the $50. That then it will actually be a really worth buying type of a tutorial. Actually, to make something that actually will be a tutorial, because like the things that I upload in here on the YouTube is, this is more like a process video instead of like a tutorial. So if I were to sell anything a little bit more expensive, I would actually want it to be a tutorial. I need a reference for the axe. Axe. Holding axe. Yeah, and now to find this. Oh, I found it. It was quicker than I expected. Yeah, but also one of the things that I was not really understanding, like a lot of artists are doing, is like pricing their tutorials. Also, this is a thing that Shamak was talking about in his podcast. Later I will like make sure to, or I will do it now because later I will forget. Or I will simply like write his name. Shamak Roshani. That he was talking about in his podcast, in his YouTube channel, was the idea of like this really lowballing the prices, where you pay for like a tutorial that is like 20 hours long, $2 or something like this. So this is like the opposite spectrum of dumb, because to make to even make a video that takes this many hours to render, I can imagine the price, like even selling 100 copies of this tutorial will still give you like $200 or something like this. So it's like literally not worth your time. Like pretty much the time is more expensive. This guy. I need a better reference. To be honest, it's really hard, I would say, to talk about the rendering per se, because like to talk about the rendering, you really need to understand a lot of the things that are not necessarily that interesting. So for example, all the construction of the shadows, like all the color theory, like there are tons and tons of different things on top of each other that you really need to know before you can talk about like actual rendering. And at my level, I don't really even feel confident enough to talk about like the brush strokes and everything, because I have like my way of painting, and it does not necessarily mean this is the best way of painting. And what I also kind of believe in is pretty much the more you will do, the more tutorials you will like look up to and watch and whatnot, the pretty much easier it will be for you to just render something. So I don't think a brush strokes or anything are that crucial when you just start to learn how to draw or how to paint. I'm trying to find a reference for the hand with the axe, but I guess I will need to make my own. So give me a minute, but I need to make a reference. Do I have something that is about a similar thickness? I do. Also a really cool thing to do if you can't find a perfect reference, just make your own. Boom. Now let me copy. Like also the brushstrokes is the topic that is not necessarily the most important thing in the beginning, because like it's kind of like with the languages and everything. If you want to learn a language, you won't start with really worrying about the perfect pronunciation of everything. You should worry at the beginning about like actually knowing the words and whatnot. Like the great pronunciation is just a bonus to it, I would say. And the same thing applies to art. You don't really need to focus on like on the details, like the brush strokes, because this is a detail, like this is a complete detail, I would say. It can have like a great and a huge impact on the painting, but it's not a thing that is easy or that is a basic as a topic. So I would say don't care about it that much in the beginning. Even now for me, like I have the basic understanding of the shading techniques and whatnot and everything. I know what I need to do in order to, for example, to painting look this way or that way, but it all comes down to the practice. Like even with this drawing, like now I have a pretty good understanding of what I am doing right now, but I still can easily say that my understanding will be way better after doing the next 10 monsters or so, stuff like this, simply because I will like have more experience with it. So for example, in here I try this type of a brush strokes, in here I try this type of a brush strokes, in here I try different way of like creating a crosshatch and everything, and it kind of adds up to all these like details, small details that I have, that I like learn. But if I were to like focus purely on like making the brush strokes nice, then it will be a really hard thing for me to learn. And to be honest now, like at the beginning you need to go way too smooth or way too like dirty and everything with the brushes. So later you will kind of know a balance. Like try doing everything really smooth, try doing everything really like rough and not clean, and at some point you will know what you are doing, And what is also a benefit for it is the fact that at some point, if someone wants you to make a smooth painting or a smooth drawing, you will be able to do it alongside like the really rough and painterly one. To be honest, based on my own experience, I could easily say at the beginning, the beginners tend to think the great rendering needs to like take 20 or 40 hours and it needs to be really polished. So for example, they go like this and they try to like smooth everything out, and also they don't really have a great control of like the even of the tools that they are using. So for example, with this brush, it's really hard to make like a really delicate line, but I can, for example, without any problems, control like the full spectrum of the opacity of this brush. For the beginners, I usually see something like this happening all the time because they simply do not have the practice with the tool. They simply don't know how to use the tool. And I would say this is the problem number one, that they tend to over smooth everything because they simply spend way too long with working with some things. The second problem is actually the beginners discovering the smooth brush, because for example in here, if I were to start like even doing with this brush, if I make some sort of a like gradient in here, well, let me only change the picking colors. For example, as you can see, I can create, let's say, some sort of a gradient that will go, well, from the like darkest thing to the lighter thing, but it will take me a bit of a time, like actually drawing and painting and rendering, just trying to like create this spectrum. And we can say easily that this type of a shading has some sort of a quality to it, like it looks somehow it has like a visible character to it, but it took some time. But if I do something like this and I discover I can do pretty much the same thing in a second with like a brush, then why should I do something that takes me longer? Like it's kind of the idea of doing this longer is kind of contradictory to what people say often, that you need to like work fast and everything. The thing is, why should you go with this one if this one is so much faster? And the answer is you just won't learn how to paint without doing this shit manually. So in here I would say the soft brush is kind of working like a prosthetic something. Yeah, hello Tank. Cerebus. But let me finish answering the first question. What does a beginner need to learn to get more structure and texture and form and shape? I would say just experiment with shit. Like don't expect, like don't do the same thing over and over again and expect the result to be different. What I would say is read different books about the topic. Try to get different insight from different artists, because some of them will tell you only cross-hatching like vertically makes sense. Some of them will tell you only wrapping around the form will make sense. Some will tell you only like working with the flat shadows and colors will make sense and everything. But if something works for them, it does not mean it necessarily will work for you. So the first thing that I think you should do is to actually get like a broad spectrum of different opinions and simply go through them all and try to experiment with them. Because then you will know what is actually working for you and what is not working for you. In my case, for example, shading and drawing and everything, I really like to wrap the lines along like around the form. And there is a reason why I like do it this way, because in my opinion it looks just okay, it looks cool. But I know artists that they can do basically everything like in this angle, and they make a spectacular artworks. This is just their style. So that's pretty much all. But at first, I would say you should, to get a texture and form and shape nicely, you should learn how to draw it instead of like how to paint it. So for example, if you want to draw a tree bark, let's say, learn how to draw a tree bark, how to interpret the tree bark in a drawing, like how to actually draw this texture. And then if you will paint, you will actually know how to pretty much reapply the same knowledge to the to the different things. And for example, if you are going to draw scales, try to draw some scales like with a freehand type of a thing. It's like create a gradient out of it. You will also find this type of an exercise in like many different books. But if you will know how to draw it, then you will pretty much know how to paint it. The rest is pretty much choosing the brush that has a cool texture on it. So from painting looks better. I guess also the beginners tend to care too much about their painting. They want them to be perfectly smooth and everything. Like they focus on the details instead of the overall picture, and this is the biggest problem. But if I will come up with something new, I will also tell you. And for the tongue, thanks for the good work and for deserving more subs. I have to be honest, if you have a nice understanding of 3D and everything, and that you can say that you know what you are doing, then drawing won't be as hard as you expect it most likely to be. For the things that you should start with if you really want to start drawing is Perspective Made Easy. Made Easy by Ernest R. Norling. Then I would go to, or maybe not then, but alongside creative illustration. Illustration by Alumis. And then go to Harding Drawing. Harding Lessons on Drawing, I guess. What? And Drawing. And I guess, to be honest, these 3 books at the beginning are more than enough. Also, if you want to learn this type of stuff, I am also doing at the moment some like live streams about the drawing basics and everything. It's each Wednesday, and there were already 3 live streams like this, I guess. So also you can just go watch them, because I pretty much cover this whole topic in there. But the long story short is you should draw a lot of boxes, a lot of stuff in the perspective, like the really basic stuff in the perspective. You should like just basically do what you basically do in 3D, but just do it in the 2D. So by this way you will get like a grip on how the things behave in the space and in the perspective and everything. And also I show a way how you can supplement like your drawing skills, your drawing abilities, and with the 3D. So if you know a 3D, you have like a huge advantage over the someone who is not really familiar with the 3D and everything, because you can pretty much create your own references and whatnot. And I guess these books will be the best type of thing is to do. Actually, like the biggest difference with like 3D and 2D is in 3D you can rotate stuff without any problems, and you will always get a perfect result. In 2D you cannot. In 2D you actually need to like spend hours trying to sometimes make something look at least okay. But yeah, and you kind of reminded me of the really nice meme. But let me just search it. A friend of mine today sent me this one, and it's actually something that I will also draw. Tongue, a really cute one. But I am actually going to draw it in one of the streams because this is a really good example on how you can also play with like a basic geometry and to actually make it fun. So yeah, the tongue and the bonk and the honk. So actually, pretty much let me just paste it in here. So for example, even if you have like stuff like this, just drawing something even as stupid as this is a really great exercise, because in here, as you can see, you basically have two cylinders, and this is a really basic shape, and in here you pretty much have a shape that goes a bit like this, like to simplify it a bit, like this thing going in here, and for example with like a hatch in here. This is like pretty much an extremely basic, extremely easy geometry to draw, but at the beginning it simply does not appear to be so obviously easy because you are distracted with all the details that are happening around. So I think going with stuff like this is a really good idea in learning how to draw. And also draw things that you simply enjoy. So if you enjoy drawing dragons, just practice perspective and everything while drawing dragons, because you will simply feel a bit more like interested in the topic. Like I can imagine drawing, for example, boxes and planes and everything. It's just boring as shit. It's just basically boring task. But if you can make it interesting, then you are pretty much golden. For example, for me, I really enjoy drawing boxes and everything, because I had to teach myself to like them, because I actually teach it pretty much every week how to draw them. So I had to find a way how to actually make this work interesting instead of like being a torture for like repeating the same shit over and over again. So with like pretty much repeating to myself like every week that I really like this, I really like this, I actually liked this. So yeah. And also you can see all the Feng Zhu videos, because he, especially his student artworks, because really often they work pretty much on top of the 3D and everything. So maybe you will be able to create something a bit more complex really quickly in the 3D and then simply try and drawing on top of it. This is also like a legit way of learning how to draw. Well, there are many different ways to approach this topic. But I would say just make it fun, and don't forget that the fundamentals are pretty much the most important things out there. Because I have seen so many like cool artists that they were like doing batshit crazy stuff in 3D and everything. They were like perfect images in Photoshop, and then I saw their drawings and I was like so extremely disappointed, like to the point where they were unable to draw the simplest thing in the perspective, but they were like the ace of all trades when it comes to Photoshop and all the 3D renderers and everything, and they could do like amazing imagery, but their drawings were actually extremely disappointing. And this is, for example, something that is not really working with me. I don't want to like be able to make like perfect, like I mean I want to be able to make a perfect like 3D renderings and everything and whatnot, but I also want to be able to draw everything in any like way I want. So I don't want the 3D software to like basically work as something that will work for me in a sense. So I still believe like the actual ability to draw anything by hand and everything is extremely important. It may be a kind of old school way of thinking, but I simply enjoy drawing, so there is no way I'm going to not draw just because. a computer can do something better. Sometimes I will use it, but if I would have all the time in the world, I would try to draw everything. But yeah. Had a really hard time on saying what is not right with the face. Till I forgot to make this place really dark. And also for the previous topic about the rendering and everything, like that like the beginners tend to make everything smooth. I also think like the basic experience kinda is also a really important part to look up to, because if someone did like 10,000 paintings, they simply know how to press a brush stroke into something to make it look okay. Like they know where to press it, how to press it, and how the interaction between like the brush strokes should look like. If you're a beginner, you don't know this stuff, so you simply need to just draw more and paint more, and at some point you will simply like, out of the whole painting, you will like one brush stroke, and you will remember how you made it, why you made it, and everything. And then this like experience will basically go on top of each other. Like you will add all the bricks that you need to add for the experience to make the brush strokes look better. But I wouldn't focus on it. Yeah, I know, like in 3D, like you just make a general shape and you simply increase like the density of the details and everything around it. So like the process is pretty much exactly the same. The cool part about the 3D is that it does like vast majority of the shit for you. The not cool part about the 3D is you will have like dozens more technical problems with everything around than you would have with drawing. Simply like different problems, different medium, different problems, but the process is more or less exactly the same. For me, for example, in this guy, I have the opacity in here turned off, but I know that the brush settings, that in the brush settings the transfer is on, so it does not really matter that it's on in here. Usually, if I want to draw something, I use transfer, because without transfer, I get a continuous line without any type of a pressure, and I don't necessarily like it. But I have seen artworks of guys who draw this way, and it looks batshit crazy amazing. Usually when I want something to be way smooth, or then when I want to have a huge control over the brush strokes, then I actually like reduce the opacity for like 50%, and then I try to smooth something, because then I have way more precise way of applying everything that I want to include in the drawing. Need to increase the density of the shadows in here, and it will be ready to render. So now the hard part comes. Now I need to figure out how to color this guy. So this is where the fun begins. I also now think the chest area could have a bit more details on it, so let me simply rework it a bit. Yeah, what I mean, you will have artists that do not use opacity at all. There's even like an entire book on this topic. It's called Alla Prima, I guess. And there are artists who will tell you like just go 10% opacity and just render the shit out of everything that you draw. There will be artists who will tell you like something completely opposite, like turn off the opacity and just go full metal painting. You just need to experiment with everything to see what like works for you. Like I tried doing Cala Prima, I can see how it improved my skills a bit when I tried to do it, but after a while I was like, nah, I'm not having it. I'm not a huge fan of this way of working, so I won't work this way. But it all comes down to like understanding the fact there is no magic pill for the drawing, and that you actually need to like try to draw everything and try everything before you know if something works for you or if something does not work for you. Shit. Change the tolerance. Okay. Whoa, no. Even like a friend of mine once said that because I was attending his classes at Domin really back in the days, because I asked him how he knew how to draw like everything, and he told me this really cool like piece of advice that he has no idea how to draw this or that or this, but with every drawing he has like the higher probability of succeeding with it because he know what type of mistakes he can make and he kind of knows how to avoid them because like he has experience with them. So this is also a good way to approach it. Like I also think I don't say I, for example, can draw a skull or something like this. I simply have drawn them many times, but I would say I have a good understanding of how to draw them, but I can say I know how to draw a skull only about the skull that I already finished, because I can see that it was a successful drawing or not. So yeah, I can say I expect way less problems to appear while drawing a skull of a human, for example, instead of drawing a skull of a horse, because skull of a horse, like I drawn like maybe once in my entire life. So I can expect way more problems to appear while drawing the skull of a horse, for example. But if I have a reference, I don't think I would have that many problems with it. From the imagination, no way. I'm going to draw a skull. Okay, so let me now. Mm, honestly, I know this is an extremely hard to do, extremely hard thing to do, is to finish your painting if you think it sucks. But to be honest, without finishing a painting, there's no way you will improve, because if you will abandon every single painting that you do, it will get way harder for you to finish anything at all, because you will not be used to finishing a thing. And I would say, even though I know this is pretty much impossible thing to do, try to finish every single thing that you start. Sometimes, like, simply, I know this is impossible because even like I am aware of this fact. Sometimes even I don't finish everything that I do. Just sometimes I just drop a project because of reasons. But the sooner you will learn how to actually finish a project, the better you'll be at it. And by starting over 10,000 times, like on different projects, the biggest disservice that you are doing to yourself is you will be you will get really good or even too good at starting the project, but you will extremely quickly feel lost because you have no idea how to continue the project, because you're only like starting something, you never finished anything. So this might be a really problematic thing later, and the cool project that you will invent might get a really strong hit, because really quickly you will get to the point where you don't know what to do next, because you have no experience in it. So instead of like starting 10 projects at the same time and finishing 0 of them, will be worse than starting one project and finishing one project, because then you know how to start a project, how to go through the project, and how to finish a project. Of course, like finishing it and going through it will be really painful, but the balance in a sense will be there in a bit. There is this saying that the painting is never finished, the painting is only abandoned by the artist. I would say usually if you have no idea whatsoever what you could improve and what to push further and where to improve, or what is like annoying to you, or what is looking good, what is not looking good, then just try a bit more, just to push it a bit more, like let it rest for like some days, and then just try to push something, and then just go to the next project, because there's like no other way to tell that you improved at something or not. So this is a pretty good approach. If you have no idea what to do next and you simply just feel like, okay, everything is done, like every single pixel is finished, I cannot improve on it any further, then most likely this is the way how you should feel about this piece, and just simply move on it. And of course in the beginning, like, because like the painting is, in my opinion, is a it's a really heavily driven decision making process, because every time that you make a brush stroke, when you draw something, when you make a line thicker, thinner, or something, you are making a certain decision. And the more painting and drawing you do, the better you are at making these decisions. And the more you draw, the better experience you have with making these decisions, and the more obvious the final result might be for you. At the beginning, there is a chance for a beginner, for example, to only make a bad decision, like to make only bad choices. So for example, you could go this way or this way, but you chose this way, and the final result will not be as good as it will be if you would choose a different thing to make, like for example a different brush stroke, a different color, or different whatever. But it do not necessarily mean this is a bad artwork now. It kind of means, in my opinion, this is the artwork you needed to make to know that choosing this thing will not lead to a great result. So you had to make a good paint, you had to make a bad painting now to make a better painting later. So I don't necessarily think about the paintings sometimes as something that is good or not. Every single painting, even like the worst one, has a lot of value in it, or can have a lot of value in it, if you treat it like an opportunity to learn, instead of like the opportunity, like just to make a good painting or good drawing. Because then, like the vast majority of the things that I have done to this point, I would not consider a good drawings or good paintings, because I can see what decision and when failed me. But now I know what I need to do in order for a piece to look a bit better. So yeah, even for this guy, I wouldn't say he's finished or that I finished drawing or anything. At some point, I will simply say, okay, enough, and off to the next I go. Because simply I don't want to, for example, spend 9 hours on him. I just want to spend like 3 hours on him. Usually after 2 hours I will be finishing the stream, but I really enjoy doing this guy, so I might put a bit more things on him. Let me quickly make some adjustments to him. Darker from the bottom, lighter from the top. Overlay. And now, for example, I usually would do this type of a thing where I kind of make the bottom darker and the top a bit lighter. But since I want to use a gradient maps for this guy, so for example, a gradient map basically is telling me what type of a value like will be changed with what color. So for example, and I cannot pick up the, wow, the Photoshop is really bad recently. I seriously cannot pick a color for it. You gotta be kidding me. Wow, I can only, okay, I am in the mask, okay. I was afraid the Photoshop got this bad. Oof. Oof. Okay. Photoshop is not bad anymore. Yeah, so for example, for this guy, I just want to like pick the colors and tell myself like the darkest spots are like almost black, a bit lighter spots are like this reddish orange, and the lighter spots will be like reddish. Also, as you can see, it kind of naturally turned into like this pink skeleton. And then we will go through the oranges and the yellows. And now if I place this layer underneath it, you can see how much it changes the values. So this is not really a good way to approach it. I kind of want it to be like this, and now I kind of want to work on this guy in here. But also this is not a cool color. It is a bit easier, but also I will stay away from it because this is like total gimmick to just speed up the process, to be honest. Like this is the shit most likely you should avoid. I am removing not the wrong layer because this is like a pure gimmick. I would say it's great for doing fire and whatnot, and some people use it, but it's hard to tell. Sometimes, yeah, if you want to learn it, just learn it because yeah, it's a tool. You need to know different tools, but let it not be your only tool that you know. Let me put it this way. Okay, so I can imagine this guy will be a bit colder on the bottom, so he will have a bit colder arms and the weapon. He definitely will have like a hotter core, so now I'm kinda doing a copy of this guy, but I also want his face to be a bit more like burning. So stuff like this. The eyes I will add separately. Also I can try to play a bit with the blending modes. Maybe something cool will come out of it. Overlay versus normal looks a bit better. This one looks cool, but let's keep overlay. Oh yeah, but the coolest thing actually is to just do everything as you intend, like from the get-go, from the start. This is the coolest way to approach anything. Replace the layer mask, yes, invert it. This is a cool also gimmick because I did a mask in here that hid the colors in here. I reapplied this mask in here, so now everything that I color is the part that are not red. So I'm only coloring everything that is not red. So I want this guy to be like this cherry, like bluish dark, bluish a bit. Yeah, as I said, this type of tools are like pure gimmicks only. You don't necessarily need to learn them or know them at all, but sometimes it will be helpful because, for example, you will commit a painting, you need to make some sort of a like a huge change in a painting, And if you know shit like this, then it's a no-brainer. Then this is an easy task, to be honest. But for example, a friend of mine recently, he had no idea about this gradient maps, and he tried to paint an illustration with like the sepia type of a colors and everything. I showed him gradient maps, and basically the work became a no-brainer. So it definitely won't hurt to know this stuff, but I wouldn't necessarily consider them vital. I like the way it looks, but it kind of defies the whole point of having a line art, because it almost looks exactly the same without the line art as it does with the line art. So I guess this guy will be way trickier than I expected him to be. To actually fill him with all the colors and everything. But if I do something like this, yeah, and this is kind of where I would say the experience kind of kicks in with the program, because I kind of know what does what, and I kind of can expect the shit to affect the painting in a different manner. Also soon I will show you the cheesiest way to add flames in Photoshop. And I want his weapon to be red glowing hot. And actually a cool way to do it was to, I guess, grab this bluish hue, apply it in here as an overlay, and then take like yellowish hue or reddish hue. This is one of the things that I discovered like really back in the days, but I don't remember how it worked. But it was a really specific combination of colors and layers to achieve this really nice looking like hot metal type of a painting, type of an effect. To me. I will only make sure that the handles of this weapon are pretty much uniform in color, or that they are a bit darker. Yeah, this one will not turn out as I intended him, and this style is not really fitting the idea of him. But let me group everything, let me work on the duplicate. Yeah, the problem is with the painting that it is actually like all the line art is in here, and the line art sometimes is kind of preventing the stuff to happen. And if I overdo it a bit, like if I actually hit the line art, then it looks almost the same. I don't really want the line art to be affected by anything that I do in here. So, but soon I guess I will still have to revisit it a bit to add like this 3D looking effect on top of it, or maybe I will simply have to just paint over it. As I said, I don't want it to be like a painting type of an experience. I want it a bit to be more about drawing and everything, but this guy I guess wouldn't do with only drawing. Kinda needs to have some things painted over. And also this is kinda a place where, for example, you simply cannot use all the gimmicks and everything because it won't do. Like it won't make the spec. You simply need to just go over and paint over some stuff. Gimmicks are gimmicks, but they created a nice base, but that's pretty much all they did. Yeah, and also the problem that is in here is that the fact that some of the darkest spots are actually the spots that I would like him to have like really glowing. So like in here, I would like him to basically be like this hotspot for flame. So maybe I add linear dodge and add outer glow to it. And the outer glow will be like set to linear dodge, then it won't affect the painting the liner that much. But I kinda want him to have this like, oh yeah, it will do the job. And now I guess I can make it brighter to the point where it will basically become white. Yep. And the problem solved. So now the line art is not really getting a heavy hit, but the core of this guy is really burning hot. So now basically all the darkest spots that I had in these guys kinda working like a base for the brightest spots. So everything, for example, in mouth can work. Place for him to have like this really bright colors. Necessarily I want him to be like white in those spots, but it looks kind of okayish, I guess. Now also, and this is also an effect that I really like. As you can see, it will only work on the white background, but hot as drops of the flame dripping from him. This is kind of the effect that I kind of wanted to avoid of having, like adding this third-party elements on him that are kind of like a VFX type of an effects over him, but for this guy is kind of justified. But I really need to have this a bit darker background for him because otherwise it won't really work for him. And this is basically like the essence of the tricks. Maybe I would be able to paint something like this by hand, but it will take me like hours and hours on top of an hours. With the drawing, like with some Photoshop shit happening, it basically does itself. And now also the blade will get like a red hot. So This one is cheesy as hell. It does not look like anything that I wanted it to look like, but it looks flashy and I enjoy it, so we'll continue doing it. For the flaming feet. Yep, I have seen it. I am extremely happy for it because I am really interested in how it will turn out. I think it might actually be one of the best things to happen to Diablo in a really long time, because as I said, in my opinion, Diablo 3 was not a good thing necessarily. It was a good game, not a good Diablo. But for Diablo, I'm actually hyped. And especially the fact that a pretty good studio is doing, like actually a really good studio is doing the remaster. So the chances of success are now really high. So I hope they learned their lesson and that they know what they are doing with their IP. And the good thing is the fact that that it won't be like the cover for the previous game, that it will be like entirely different client and everything. Because in Warcraft they pretty much killed the entire Warcraft 3, because it pretty much removes the old Warcraft. And in this case it does not. So, and this is a great news, to be honest, because we won't lose the original, which a lot of people were afraid of, because if they will like try to like, simply remove the original, the people will actually riot this time. But yeah, I really want to see this game already out, because in my opinion it's going to be like one of the best games ever. Especially since it looks so nice, because like one of the problems, for example, with the Warcraft that I always had and with the World of Warcraft are these like over the top proportions and everything. I was never a huge fan of it, but I can understand why some people like it, but it was like never my thing, like my piece of cake. And the thing that I'm really happy with, that they actually tried to keep everything a little bit more realistic in proportions and everything. And this is a good thing, in my opinion. Okay, so the problem with this guy, with this one, is if I flatten everything, the adjustment layer turns to shit. So I cannot flat everything. I can only flat this one, and this layer needs to be constantly on the separate layer, because otherwise it won't work. And I have no idea, and I think there is no way for me to change actually this layer to actually have these colors without like the background looking like this. So this is a bit of a shame, and this is why the tricks sometimes do not really work that well, but this is what happens if you are trying to use too many tricks. But if I were to paint it all by hand, I would not have this problem. So ups and downs of all the different techniques. But I guess it looks kinda okay-ish. So let me just do the shadow in a traditional manner. So just duplicate it, Control T, place it on the ground, boom, the shadow is done. I guess I can, but the problem is that if I turn it into a smart object, then it won't know that these layers are supposed to interact with the background, because they interact with the background. And if I change the background, as you can see in here, boom, it will also affect the way this layer looks. Like for the dark layer, it does not really matter that much, but the brighter it is, the brighter the flame inside is. So basically it's like lightening the background. So if it's white, it will disappear. I hope my Instagram posts actually are not white. If it's a bit darker, then it's fine, but I will have to actually, I guess, include a bit of a darker background into it for it to look okay. The skeleton. Oh yeah, the skeleton itself is not a problem, and the problem is the layer settings. I would have to, because this is like the three effects on top of each other, and the smart object won't know that it will save it inside the smart object, but there will be no way for them to affect the layer underneath, because this color outside is purely an effect of them interacting with the background. So this is where the problem is, pretty much, with this guy. But let me see if I will be able to because I have this Instagram post in here. Let me see it, how it will look like. Whoops. Let me move you in here. As long as it looks okay in here, then it's fine for me. Let me only remove you, Shamak, from here. I guess the background will benefit more if it will be darker, for example, like this. But I want to keep it consistent, so there will be only like a really slight touch of the color, as you can see in here. So yeah, ups and downs of different techniques, but I guess it looks kinda like it's flaming, like it's fair, like it's burning, so I guess it's fine. I guess it turned out quite okay. Definitely not as I wanted it to turn out, but here comes the experience also. Fire skeleton. Also, a really cool thing to do is, if you have things like this, you can just go to wait, it was an no, it was for the darker colors, but you can linear dodge it, and you can simply change the underlying things. So for example, if I were to have let me find interior. If I were to have like a dark interior, well, let's take this picture from the web, and if you want to make some sort of a spirit, then if you will play with like these different settings in here, I guess it was a combination of some, but I guess lighter color works pretty well, or linear dodge, and then you simply change the underlying layer from the whites, then you can see a really cool like spirit like silhouette will kinda happen. So you can make like a spirits with ease. Then maybe normal, and then maybe hide it even more, so you have a spirit, like a trick to add. Let me bug this everything, let me save it. Yeah, I want to see what the next one is, because the burning skeleton definitely is finished. D5, the D5 is hidden, and I still need to have like D3, D2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 monsters to do. So I will mark the D5 for you then. D5. Wow. Why it is black? pick the yellow color, and this is D5. Yep, 5. So D5, 4. I will let you know. Yeah, you will know. On D5. God, I'm dumb. 8 on D5. I will let you know because it will take some time, but I guess throughout the week I will manage to make 2 or 3 more of them. So maybe it will get a bit closer. Ace, A6, also for Mikoi. 9. Okay, I will know this one. So yeah, let me see what is under number 2. So the next one, and it is J6. So the next monster is a fiend. Okay, a third one, I guess, because there was a familiar, there was a gloom, there is a fiend. So really close to finishing the first 4 monsters of each. So a fiend next. Oh, I hope the succubus will be last. Drawing female characters is my weakness. Yeah, so I guess this will be all for today. Then thanks for anyone for tuning in and for asking all the questions. This is how it looks like, and the way it will be presented on my Instagram, I guess, will look like this. So yeah, that's pretty much all. If anyone has any questions or suggestions or anything, or just whatever, feel free to include them in the comments or don't, however you feel like with them. And thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy everything. The next stream will be at Wednesday at the same hour at 9 p.m, but it will be about drawing basics, so I guess maybe it will be about painting like a still life from the solids, or maybe it will be about like drawing some basic stuff. I will need to see what I prefer to include in there, but yeah, this is pretty much all. So yeah, have a good day or a night or whatever, and I am signing off. So see ya.